Islamic perspective, it seems recently there's been so many attacks on Islam, whether it's the Salman Rushdie or Geert Wilders. We've heard about the caricatures as well that we've mentioned as well. You know, in those examples, the way they seem to actually benefit it from it and say that the way they can get away with it, if you like, is because they have the freedom of speech to put out what they want. And how the issues that have arisen in the media has been the Islamic reaction from that. It's been, you know, way over the top, some people would say. So, I mean, how would you respond to that?
It's the point about sentiments. I mean, it perplexes me a little bit to have all this attachment to my feelings and my sentiments. And you gave the example of Muslim sentiments. I mean, are we such cowards? Are we such so unable to speak and stand up and defend ourselves that we have to either go and stand in a corner or sit around and moan and complain or look at what these people are doing to us, or not be able to express ourselves, so we go and burn flags and we go and throw dustbins around? I mean, is that a civilized behavior? No, it isn't. I mean, the first point on the sentiments really is this, is that if we were going to limit speech on the basis of sentiments, none of us would say anything. Yeah. I mean, how many times have you been offended by your family, your brothers or your sisters or your parents or people you work with? Everyone disagrees. And disagreement is a positive thing. Okay. The key thing is how you express it and how you behave. And it's the point that you're totally right, Ravil Sahib, in saying it's not so much the speech or the content of the speech, it's the behavior and the intent with which it's done. And there's nothing to stop Muslims standing. I'm saying, well, actually, and this is all the more so if we truly believe that what we're saying is right. What's to stop us standing up and saying, well, actually, what you're saying is wrong. Yeah. And these are the reasons why you're saying it's wrong. But and not only is it wrong...
It's the way that they need to express
precisely,
that.
And not only is it wrong, but I'm telling you it's wrong, and I'm doing it in a dignified manner, showing you that actually your behavior of insulting me, I'm not going to rise to that behavior. Yeah. I'm going to act with a certain degree of decorum and respect and proper conduct and show you actually, not only am I right, but I'm showing you that my behavior is right as well.
Fantastic. Let me move to the audience. I mean, us as Muslims, how do we present ourselves in a way that, if there are examples where we do disagree, how do we actually present that disagreement? Have you got something you'd like to add to that?
Last point made by Qudsi Sahib there is interesting, because you could say that when I'm offended as a Muslim, then I choose to behave in a dignified way. Now, the question is, where did I get that code of conduct from in itself? That I've got because I subscribe to a system that has presented, that I feel is more rational than anything else. So that's my choice. Okay. Whereas other people, that's not necessary. I can't sit here and say that is something that anybody can take on, because it depends whether they've had access to that information, what their feelings are, how that's been presented to them in itself. So the Muslims or whoever, if they react to Salman Rushdie or anything in a violent way or whatever, it's not a question of I'm trying to justify it, but it's a question of what do they understand about how they should act, who is actually educating them and how they should respond to these things.
I just want to get some more views as well. Mansoor, what do you think about what we've been discussing and protecting people's sentiments and their feelings?
Well, obviously, in terms of freedom of speech, one has to be obviously very careful of what has been said, because you would be obviously hurting somebody's feelings, somebody's belief. You have the right to speak openly, but one has to make sure that take the aspects and take views in consideration that does not harm or hurt anybody else's feelings.
I just want to take one more point of view. Amir, have you got something you'd like to just add to that?
I wanted to just mention about the idea about truth and the fact that freedom of speech, from my own opinion, freedom of speech is about looking for truth. Right. You can have someone propagate something about somebody to a detriment, and the only way you can counter that is by in a dignified manner, expressing truth. And then the question comes, who defines what truth is when there are differing factors? And I think the gentleman next to me had a very good point, is that leadership of some sort needs to be in place. And from my own opinion, the only leadership that would be valid to be sort of the governing decision, or the governing body behind defining what the truth is to have a leader and to have a spiritual one.
Okay. Question though, how do you choose who your leader is?
You don't choose.
No, I mean, if you're a person sitting in a country, let's say, there's 5 different leaders. How do you know which one?
Well, you look at the actions that speak louder than their words, and you match the words that they say. So
Yeah,
it's very important to look at what the person is propagating as well as what the person is doing.
Yeah. And the point that I'm trying to bring out there is that there's almost a danger with the leadership concept. I mean, I'm not taking away from it. There's a danger of saying, I have a leader and that's it. We've got to be very careful not to think, in my opinion, to say, well, you follow things blindly, right? Blindness is not a good thing. We all know that. We like our eyes. So even when there's leadership, you have to choose your leadership wisely in the first place. Some people are born into following a particular leader. Yep. They have to decide from themselves at some point in their life, is this what they're going to continue to do? Yep. Other people will question things. And the value of questioning is not a bad thing. Questioning is a good thing because, like we've said, it's only through questioning that you can discover new truths and new ideas and that you can hold your own ideas stronger. Yep. That's why things should be questioned.
I just need to stop the discussion there. We're just going to take a quick break. But we'll carry on afterwards as well. And join us for the second half of the program, where we're going to be focusing a bit more on the media and what role that has to play within this, the whole issue of freedom of speech. So we'll be back in just a minute.
वक्त था वक्त मसीहा न किसी और का वक्त था वक्त मसीहा न किसी और का वक्त मैं ना आता तो कोई और ही आया होता मैं ना आता तो कोई और ही आया होता जिंदाबाद जिंदाबाद अहमदियत जिंदाबाद अहमदियत जिंदाबाद अहमदियत जिंदाबाद अहमदियत जिंदाबाद अहमदियत जिंदाबाद
Welcome back to part two. Today we're looking at freedom of speech, freedom of expression, and looking at the pros and cons, trying to find a whole holistic view around the topic. And right now we're going to focus on the media and what role that has as well. Waqar, turning to you, obviously you've written in local media as well. As a journalist, if you'd like to call yourself that, as a writer, surely you have a huge responsibility regarding freedom of speech.
Absolutely correct. And again, it's a right, in a sense that I have to write, with a W this time, but again, with responsibility. Mentioned earlier on about the Press Complaints Commission, there is a code of conduct that newspapers and everyone in the media has to follow in order to not overstep the mark. Freedom of information, everyone has the right to know, the public has a right to know, and it's a responsibility of people in the media to spread that knowledge and information.
But what do they have the right to know? I mean, there's people's own privacy, for example, that sometimes they feel their privacy is being, intruded into. So where do the boundaries lie? What information is sort of counts within that?
There are certain contexts that you're not allowed to step into. An example being, for example, taking photographs of somebody in the privacy of their own home without their consent, as an example.
I mean, we hear so much about celebrity complaining about that their freedom of privacy has been invaded into.
The privacy point is an interesting one, because what we have here, and it's something we've not touched upon yet, is that there's consistently, with any form of political, legal, philosophical thought, what we're dealing with here is a conflict of interests, values, and principles. You've got things flying around all over the place. You've got privacy rights, you've got truth, you've got free expression, you've got equality, non-discrimination. You've got all these things that we all like and that we all want lots of. But how do we reconcile them when they come into conflict with each other? So, for example, if my particular politician was committing adultery, let's say, I think I would be entitled to know, even though it might breach his privacy rights, because it's important that I have a decision about who's going to be running my life, that I know their personality. Whereas if my next-door neighbour is committing adultery, do I necessarily have a right to it? Well, probably not. So what we have here is a situation where we've got various different things that we like, and we're trying to balance them and reconcile them.
I was just going to pick up on that point. It's been mentioned earlier in the programme about free speech in the media generally, as